Okay, this is objection number 3. It has to do with improper opinion. So, generally speaking, you are allowed. Generally speaking, the only people who are allowed to give testimony of an opinion are experts. Uh, Experts are those people who have specific training or credentials, education that allow them to speak um, on a topic with a certain credibility that a layperson does not possess. That's important because the court gives that testimony special weight. Um, the objections about improper opinion tend to come when, one, an expert opinion testifies about something that they have not been sworn to as an expert or qualified to as an expert. Because what happens when you have an expert witness is you have to lay a foundation for their credentials, and you establish their expertise, and you go over sort of why they should be an expert. You ask the court to qualify them as an expert, and the court generally will qualify them as an expert in a specific field. An improper opinion objection will generally come when they stray outside of the field of expertise that they're qualified to give testimony about. That was a kind of a poor sentence. An improper opinion objection often comes when experts testify to something they're not qualified to provide testimony on. Maybe that's better. So generally, that's one of the two ways where that'll come up. Expert, leaves their credential field, and they say something that's maybe tangentially related, but not actually in what they're qualified to be. The second way that an improper opinion objection gets raised is when a layperson makes an opinion about something that they're not qualified to speak about. So, I could say something like, I was driving my car, and I knew that there was an issue with the car because I've heard this sound that was a weird shaking, and I knew that meant that one of the struts was bare or something like that. I don't know a lot about cars, but my point is that if I don't have a background in automotive expertise, either based on my training, education, or credentials, I'm not qualified to render an opinion about what might have caused a sound or a noise to come from my car. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what the two sort of ways improper opinion objections are raised. One is a way that they're raised with expert testimony when an expert sort of strays outside of their credentials. The second way that you can object to an improper opinion is when a layperson testifies to something that they're not permitted to testify about, given the lack of credentials. So, in the last example, what I would have said, I could say, well, I heard a noise coming from the front of my car. It sounded like a bumping or a scraping. That's okay. But if I were to say, I heard this bumping and scraping and knew that my car had problem X, then that might be an issue if I'm not qualified to speak about the credentialing of the car. So that's sort of the improper opinion objection.